Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Garden's Untold Story. I'm Ken Somerville, and my co-host is the Invisible Gardener, Andy Lopez.
That's me.
And what are we talking about? What are the different cycles of nature? Round one, because we're just going to start with part of them today. But Andy, I'm going to let you take over the show because really you've got this dialed in on what you want to talk about today.
Well, I always try to dial in, and then the universe comes along, you end up talking about something else. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, silly Lily. And so, and this is the first time that I was able to send a newsletter out to my billions of followers on my mailing list.
Cool.
You know, a few people keep saying I'm dead. You're dead, aren't you? You. I haven't heard from you in a little while.
You are old, but I don't think you're quite dead yet.
So I figure what we'll do is we'll go to do whatever the heck I want to do. And one of the things I wanted to do was the cycles of nature, and I'm hoping to be able to relate them back to the biology that makes it work. You see what I'm getting at, right?
Yeah. Well, it's all about the biology.
And like here, for example, the first one is the carbon cycle. Everybody seems to. I'm hoping everybody knows there's a carbon cycle. People say, well, there's too much carbon in the oxygen in the air. And other people are saying, well, that's what plants need. So that's how we.
And we do too. By the way, because we're all carbon based. All of our cells. So
right.
Yeah,
so there are lots of different charts on the market that you can look at. It shows them to you, but in the particular one I have, one of the things of course, about how the industry pollutes sends all that smoke up into the air, and how pollution can affect how plants do the photosynthesis, and a lot of the carbon cycle is dependent upon how plants can convert the carbon into all the various things, or how the soil can use carbon to produce all these various different minerals and so forth. It's a very basic, and like you said, we're made out of carbon. And yesterday I was giving a talk. No, I wasn't. I was at the place. My friend, well, he was on here, Michael Whitman.
Yeah, Michael Whitman from Biochar. Blue Sky Biochar. Yeah.
Right. So he was giving a talk on the refractometer. And of course, I couldn't keep my mouth shut, so I interjected a lot of stuff, which was really always fun. He's a good guy. And of course, he sells a biochar, which is the carbon. In the form that Mother Nature makes this carbon. And it's very different than any carbon that we can make. It's a special carbon, the way it's structured, and it's made specifically to enhance. Remember we talked about the condos, the biology lived inside the condos.
Yeah.
Well, that's the biochar. That's what it does. You have the little condos, and then they produce an amazing result. And the interesting too is that they're all not the same, right? Everybody living in little condos, but they're very different. They're all different. So one of the ladies was asking about when we were talking about refractometer, about how the bricks can be raised if they all have. Oh, hi, Marshall. Yeah, man. Martial artist, cool. And so we were talking about how the more the soil is working, the higher the bricks reading is going to be. And if you do it correctly, in other words, because you do have to provide the soil some of the basic tools. Normally it's all there, but right now it's not. And so we have to get that back in shape, truly be regenerative and all that kind of stuff to make sure that it's back working. But in the interim, you have to provide all the trace minerals, and that's what we do, foliar feeding, and this rock does a whole bunch of other things. But the core of everything is the biochar, which is the carbon. And it's interesting too that in the soil, the biology, there's certain microbes that take carbon and turn it into carbonic acid, which then they use on minerals, on different rocks and different things like that to take the minerals out. And as you had mentioned once before, that so what we have basically we have a city of billions of inhabitants all living in these condos, and they all specialize in different things. So one lady says, well, I have 2 plants in my raised bed. I have a tomato plant, I have a potato, and a broccoli. And so they all should have the same refractometer reading. And I go, no, it doesn't really work that way. On top of that, And they said, well, they're all in the same soil and they're all getting the same nutrients and everything's the same. I said, it's not. What happens is that the biology says, okay, this is a tomato and this is what it needs. The biology says this is a potato and this is what it needs. The biology says that's a carrot or whatever, and that's what it needs. The biology gives them what it needs. And they, therefore, also, too, the bricks reading will be different because they're very different things. But the biology was, instead of us being the people that think we can just going to, one lady said, well, I give it 10 pounds of calcium and I throw in 4 or 5 tablespoons of magnesium.
Yeah.
And they seem to think that that is what the plant's going to get directly because of what they put in there. And they're lucky if they actually get it, the plant's actually getting any of that because the biology has to be there to transform it into what they can use.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
There are a few things that can happen that, that's what happens with chemical fertilizer. See, you don't need the biology at all in the soil. And you just put some of that stuff down in the ground and then water it, and it becomes water soluble. The plants, right? It's like they just cocaine. They just got shot up in the arm and the leaf and the branch or whatever in the roots. Like oh yeah, baby. Right. So it's not the same thing. It's just not the same thing at all. So in the carbon cycle, for example, animals play a key role, right? In how the carbon is. Who is it? Hi, cousin Silly, Marshall, Visible Gardener. Hi, Zarina. Welcome back. You missed the whole show, man. We started early.
Oh, don't tease, Andy. Don't tease.
So one of the reasons why I want to show up the cycles is you're going to find that the biology has a lot to do with each one of these cycles. You take the biology out. And one of the things that Michael said yesterday, really cool, we would not be here without fire. Mm-hmm. When things burn, they produce the carbon, the biochar, which is necessary for the biology to live in.
Well, I don't know that it's absolutely necessary for biochar to be available, but it definitely does help because you consider the other alternative for those cities is in an aggregate, which is just soil and sand, silt, clay stitched together. So a worm can go through it pretty easy, but biochar, because it's a solid, the worm can't get through. So it's like having the 3 little pigs, the straw house, or the brick house. The brick house is biochar.
It's not that the biochar is like a big brick. Oh, the whole yard is a big thing. The biochar is actually very, very small particles, very tiny. When you look at it, that's the structure that it makes. It has a little, and then so the worms can go through, and actually the worms can eat it. So it's not a barrier.
Okay, so you're talking about a powder, and I'm talking about actual. When I make my biochar, I actually have it in hunks, larger hunks in the soil, not just the powder.
Right. So what I do is I use the powdered form, both for the worms in my worm farm, and both for customers. I do have along the beach, because I live along the beach. I have these great char. Mother Nature made a homemade biochar. You see chunks of these big pieces float ashore. And I go, that's biochar. It just happens to be a big chunk of it. It's a giant big chunk of it. And ideally, like I would bury the thing. I would dig a hole, bury it in there, and you will see you'd be surprised how everything which is want to grow from there and get So I understand that. And I do. I have some every time I go to the beach, lay there and go, oh, look at that piece. And some are really giant piece. I would love to bring a giant big thing, but they're basically like that pieces, and some are a little bigger, but they're different sizes, And I would definitely. So my goal with those is when I go to a customer that has a sick tree, I call them tree vents. They're basically. I don't want to get off the subject, but this is what happens. Okay, guys, that you may have to go on part 5.
Explain the use of it, because that does really help people to understand what you got biochar, but okay, how do I use it? So please.
Right. So what I decided to do, and I may have explained this before, is that in order to bring the biology back, you want to have the city, the main core of the city, a place that could be the downtown, right? You know what I mean? Downtown city of this, and it's more like in a big when you have lots of cities around. You maybe have one big city, but you have lots of cities, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so in a tree, basically what I do is I make little cities around, and they're like 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock, and they get snuggled in between the trunk of the tree and the drip lines, right in amongst the roots. And so one way to tell how the roots are, you look up, you'll see the roots. If you're underneath a branch, yeah, you're underneath a root. It's identical. So all you have to do is take a picture of the tree, flip it upside down, and that's your root system. So you want to, and that root system is starving because the biology is not there to give them what they need. And a lot of them have this on the surface. You know, some of them develop more roots on the surface because they get water and they get some nutrients and stuff like that. But that's not the deep stuff that they need. So I've learned to get it down there to them, right? You want to get it down there to them. And so the tree vents are like 2 feet, maybe 3 feet. It depends upon whether or not you can go down and then you get a post hole digger. These tree vents are made of they're basically called wine holders, and they're made out of paramagnetic clay.
Okay.
So, I know I mentioned this before because I tend to bring this up on a regular basis. So this paramagnetic clay is really, really very cool stuff because the magnetism that it produces, it's attractive to energy, and so are the bacteria because the carbon. The way the whole thing works is basically energy functioning together, right? And so these things, the bacteria will live in the clay. And they make that structure, the very same structure that the carbon does, but they make that structure in the clay, and so it makes it what is it, porous? When it goes through, it doesn't hold anymore. Everything flows through, like you fill it with water, it comes out the other side. Porous, right?
Yeah, it would be very porous that it could just flow right through. Yeah.
Right. So that's how the biology will live in there. It's really cool when you actually. So they have it's a clay drain. It has a grate on the top, and I run a drip line through it. Put a 2 gallon per hour head in there, and make sure that the water is filtered water, because the last thing you want to do is drop some toxic water into the biology. They're not going to survive. And then
they don't like chlorine.
No, and there's chlorine, bromide, a bunch of other stuff. And there's actually forever chemicals. There's hormones. There's antibiotics. There's what is it called? When you go to the dentist, they get you antibiotics. There's tons of stuff. Not to mention the junk food that you eat and all the other stuff is like really, really super bad. So the other thing I do is I have it's called a fertigation unit.
Yeah.
And it's a combination of a fertilizer and irrigation. So it's a unit that normally you put your chemicals in there, and it's highly soluble chemicals, fertilizers, whatever. And it siphons a little bit of water goes through, and it siphons it out 1/1000th, right? It comes out, and as it goes through the drip or the sprinklers, it feeds it. Yeah. So like the genius that I am, I took one of those units and I drilled a little hole in it and made it 1/100th. Big enough for the little guys, the microbes to go through. So in there, you can literally put your compost tea. You make my own tea with it. Any kind of live things will be in there because they will not die. And it's because the water will take them and bring them on out. See, spread it out to everybody. You have to replace the liquid after a while because it's just water, right?
Yeah.
And so so the tree vents. The idea is you have a place where they can be established. They can establish themselves. It's not a good idea to say, here's a desert, figure out how to survive. No, you want to put them in a cave or someplace that maybe an oasis or someplace that, right, they have a good chance to survive. And so every time I go there, it depends on the time of year, I would inject them with the biology liquid that I have, or bring in some live compost, which has the biology in it. Or I actually bring some manure because I found that most of the highly biological stuff is manure, right? This stuff is, and so I would get it from it depends whether it be cows, steers, sheep. The cold manure are like llama, rabbits. These are time release pellets, which are really, really very good. Have special type of biology with them. So I've learned to make it. I can make a tea from that and spray the plants. Go.
Yeah.
And the biology is not only good in the soil, but it works really good as a foliar because that's what it's meant to do.
Yeah.
You're in a forest, the biology is everywhere. You can't even breathe it in without getting it into your lungs. It's on your skin. It's on the leaves. Look at it under a microscope, you'll see them. So anyway, so the carbon cycle is one of the cycles that, and even in the water, because the soil, it's called carbon sequestration. Say that for me, will you please?
Sequestration.
That's what I said. So you have that in you have that in the soil, and you have that in the ocean. Say it for me. Ocean seeks. Yeah, say it. Come on.
Carbon sequestration. Sorry, I was reading the comment.
Yeah, I was talking about the ocean.
Yeah.
So the ocean does the very same too. It takes the carbon in, and so and these are without the carbon cycle, we would not be able to be alive. Without any of these cycles that we're having here, which is an interesting thought when you think about it. All these things are in harmony with each other, except for us.
And if one breaks, it's all done.
And that is the key to it right there. And that is the whole thing. The fungi and the bacteria, the nematodes, the protozoates, all these things are dependent upon this cycle to work. Not only this cycle, but every other cycle. And I can literally go through, well, there are 90 different cycles, okay? Because you have to count every different mineral. And there are the 17 primary ones, which they always consider this is all you really need. And I'm going, oh yeah, well, tell the plant that. Tell them you don't need some of these other ones that are exotic, that you can't even pronounce the name, right? You know what I mean? And it's bad enough boron, for example, it's the boron cycle, but you need that.
Yeah.
And you also need the mercury cycle. You also need the lead cycle. Anything you consider toxic, there's a cycle that you would normally have to deal with. If you overdo it, it becomes toxic. You die, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Remember we talked about the a fractal, how a fractal has. I sent you this particular link about the formula. But if you like me, when I saw it, I already had the formula in my brain. I actually had it in my diary, and I pulled it up. And he says, "How did I ever get that? Because it's a math formula. It's the whole universe is run when we talk about frequencies. When we talk about I'm not even getting the comments. I should listen to the comments. I like the comments. They have so much fun with the comments. Hi everybody. I'm sorry I missed the comments. Something's going on in the comments. You guys always have so much fun in the comments. What I'm going to do is have Michelle do the show, and I'm going to start doing the comments.
I think Michelle should be doing the comments, and you should be doing the show.
That's what I've been telling. That's what I've been telling her lately. I said that I have this, with Ken and Silly. This is what they do. You never know about Silly because she's back there doing her thing, and that's very, very important. You can't really do both. There you go. And so a fractal is very cool because a fractal has a place of peace and the rest is chaos. And so all of this going on here, and there's a formula for it. All these cycles that we're going through, they're all based upon this particular formula. That's why it's easier for scientists to go through this and go, there's a mathematical relationship going on here with everything that we do. The structured water, the energies, the frequencies, right, are all based upon this particular formula, and these cycles have evolved. It's interesting to think that all these cycles have evolved together, right? And the next cycle I was talking about is the oxygen cycles. You have the carbon cycle, and then you have the oxygen cycle. You know that we have to have oxygen. We know we have to the oxygen. There has to be ways that the oxygen has to be made. And again, it goes back down to the biosphere, right? Which has a lot to do with our animals for one thing, and then the plants and everything, right? And the same thing in the ocean, because this is part of how we have developed. So all these things. So far, it's just looking at these things. You go, gee, either the biology developed because of all the cycles, or the cycles developed because of all the biology, or maybe the cycles in the biology kind of cooperated together and made these cycles, which makes more logical, right? So biology and the cycle sort of all of a sudden smashed together. And because the oxygen cycle is a really very important one. And you know, they talk about toxicity and deficiency and all these different cycles. Can you have too much carbon? Of course, it depends on the right. The whole
You
thing
can have
depends.
too much oxygen.
Exactly right. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. You know, you can drown it in a foot of water.
You can drown. Actually, I think the
A
smallest
little
is an
depth.
inch.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
cover
Okay,
your
well,
nose and your mouth, you're dead. Yeah.
yeah. I guess I should say inch. I guess I had it wrong. Okay, well, never mind. Okay, fine. I'm not going to talk to you anymore. I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to pout. I'm not very good
Okay,
pouting.
you pout, but I have to agree 100%, Andy, that the cycles and the biology have developed together. It's like what you say about when we came out of the muck and brought our stomach onto land. But that's the cycles had to be in place to create a combination of biology. You look at a worm has, say, 1,000,000 cells, and a human being has trillions of cells. And the only difference between the worm and us is the amount of cells that they have.
Right, a
That's the
little bit,
only
a
real
little.
difference.
The DNA is structured a little differently, but it's
Yeah.
there. You know, so the whole thing is like a definite dance
Mm-hmm.
between life and what creates life. It's not like
Yeah.
life says, okay, we're gonna do this because you know there's also that possibility you have extreme. God is very smart, or whatever you want to call it. Hey, I'm just
Yeah.
going to boom and put everything together without even thinking about it because that's the way it's. That's the way my magic works, which is possible. I'm not saying it's not, but it definitely has an intelligence when everything uh, comes together in such a way. Because without the oxygen, we definitely wouldn't even have a carbon cycle, right? The other cycle is, of course, hydrogen cycle, and the hydrogen cycle is important in so many different ways for life, you know, and it's part of the thing that creates and photosynthesis is very important for plants. And,
Yeah.
and one of the things about the hydrogen cycle is methane and rain. All these things are intertwined just to keep the biology alive. And we are the biology. When we talk about, I'm not just talking about the soil, right? I'm
Well,
talking
yeah,
about,
everything's biology. Our
yeah,
air
yeah,
is
right.
biology.
Yeah, yeah. I tell people we are the soil, right? You know, it's like, and so it's basically, and one of the things about the more we understand these cycles, the more we understand that we do not want to interrupt the cycle. We're bigger worms, yeah. Only difference between us and worms are the number of cells, yeah. You know, and how they're arranged, and how the DNA is arranged.
Yeah, exactly. It's all the same basic cells. It's all the same basic components that make up those cells. It's the same with a plant. We're basically a plant. We're all the same basic biology, all devised and built by the biology in our cells, and it's just a combination of the cells.
So like Lego
Yeah,
things, you can
yeah,
make so many different things from the same little structure, and that little structure, that's why the fractal is so unique because we use those little fractals to build with.
and that's
And
what you're talking about with the different cycles, whether it's oxygen, nitrogen, carbon. It's all those cycles coming together that need the components, like the carbolic acid made from the carbon is used in mining operations by another biology to break, say, potassium out of sand. It's all interconnected.
these last two cycles they have a very important relationship to water, in how we end up with water that's usable for us. And so the cycle are very unique. Like the next one's a nitrogen cycle, right? And the nitrogen cycle really has a lot to do with the biology has an enormous amount to do with this nitrogen cycle, whether it be vegetable plants, whether it be animals, humans, bacteria, all these different things in the soil are definitely key. And of course, the trees, when we talk about trees and plants and anything that grows, you know, whether you're nitrogen deficient or everybody knows nitrogen plays a role, chemical or otherwise, you know, this give them the nitrogen. And when I went to the first year, I went to the University of Florida, the teacher said there's no difference between urea, which is 6400, and a natural source of nitrogen. Nitrogen is nitrogen. I raised my hand. I said, oh boy. Because by then I was already, not a good boy. And I said, excuse me, don't tell the plants that. The 6400, that's it. That's what you get in urea. But in nature, it's maybe 2%. and the other 90% is made up of all these different things that the biology brings to the table. All these different things, from different biology to different minerals to the whole thing, right? It's like,
yeah.
And so he didn't like that, because that's the solution. And that's a problem too, because the way chemical fertilizers and other very they're based upon high and see, nitrogen is absorbed by plants.
Yeah.
Regardless, because it's nitrogen. See, and the plants will go, I know nitrogen when right? Boom. So there's a big difference between 6400 and 20000000000. Those
Yeah.
two.
Yeah.
Big difference. So, and they will absorb that. I said DNA sequencing plays a part in not making me a worm.
I'm not sure, Lily. I think you got some worms in you, but all they crave is chocolate. Yeah. That's it.
So it's that's part of the one of the problems when they started in the Industrial Revolution. They decided we can make more nitrogen, we can make more of these things, because they went with the philosophy that more is better.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's where we're at now.
Farming through chemistry is what it was.
Better farming through chemistry, right? And so they started saying the world is going to starve if we rely on organic farming. You can't do it. And they're still saying it to this day. They're still saying it. You can't feed the world organically. It has to be done this way.
Not at all. It can be done so much better organically, with so much more crops, so much more nutrient dense food organically than we can ever create chemically.
There are so many. This one study came out recently. Now, the study studied all these other studies. They didn't do their own thing. They studied the studies, and we came to the conclusion that we're going to starve if we're going to grow things organically, because you can't do it enough. And then they told us how they did it. And none of what they. So first of all, some of these studies they say, okay, we're going to get 3 plots, 3 identical plots right next to him. We're going to use the same seeds in this batch and that batch and that. This batch, we're going to give it the useful chemical fertilizer, whatever we do with it. The one in the middle is not going to get anything at all, it's just water. And the one on the right is going to be organic. And we'll see what works. And after the 1 or 2 seasons, they came to the conclusion that the chemically one did much better. After 1 or 2 seasons, the one in the middle, of course, didn't do very well. And the organic one always had some problems. You couldn't produce as much as the one at the beginning. So there's a couple problems with that.
Yeah, just a couple.
Do you think you want to give it a shot?
Well, let's see. You didn't prep your soil. It wasn't organic soil in the first place. It was some soil that's been used and abused for decades at the university.
Good for you.
And you don't have a clue what you're actually doing, because most of the things that they say are organic are still chemical. You're not doing it right in the first place.
Keep going.
Where did your seed come from? Is it an organic seed?
Is
it a chemically produced seed?
There you go.
Because there's the biology in and on the seed, and if it comes from a chemical plant that was fed chemicals, you don't have the biology that should be there in that. If it's growing organic seed,
the way it should have been done. The way it should have been done, first of all, it should have 10 years. We're going to give this guy 10 years, this farmer 10 years, and you forget about the guy in the middle, because if you don't do anything, they're not going to. That's a waste, right? So you have this farmer over here and this farmer, and you get a good organic farmer. First thing you'll say, like you say, is, I ain't using those seeds. You want corn? I'll grow some corn. You know what I mean? It's like, and of course he would amend the soil. By amending the soil, he would bring all the biology. He would bring the worms together, make an environment right to be sustainable. And the other guy, of course, would rototill it and start and his production may be high, but it's not going to be very sustainable. The organic farmer every year will be producing more and more and more. By the end of the 10th year, he would have not only beat the guy in production per acre and the whole thing, but he could keep on doing it. This guy would have to eventually stop, move to another property, because that property is not going to do it anymore. And that's true. He's going to be spraying more chemicals, more pesticides, and the food, it has no nutritional value. Where there's this one, and it's done correctly, because there are lots of ways you can really do it. First of all, he wouldn't be rototilling, and the second way that we have more animals rotate, AB rotated. Lots of different ways you can make that really produce. After 20, 30, 40, 50, Death Smith Valley, 100 acres, been around for 200 years. They're outproducing anything around for 200 acres. It's called Death Smith Valley. They're totally organic. They rotate everything. They have it together. They understand the value of the biology, and then you need to give this, you need to give the biology a break. You have to take care of the biology first.
Mm-hmm.
But so the guy who did the chemical one would lose, because he would be spending more and more money. He'll be getting less and less food if he survives, because he'll probably get sick too, and his family will get sick, and the dog and the animals, and the food is no nutritional. That whole thing it will be a mess. Whereas this guy could last.
We're in right now, globally, for Christ's sake.
And this guy could last for hundreds of years, and he doesn't even have to know about the cycles. All he has to know is that this is what I have to do to get the biology going and to produce. I have to learn a little bit about what plants I can grow, what will do really good here. Have clean water. Just go back to the very basics that makes it a good farm.
Yeah, having the organic material in the soil for the biology to live in, to decompose, go through a decomposition. Yeah, no, I can't say it. A decomposition of those materials to feed back to the next generation of plants, instead of having to go to the sand, silt, and clay and mine it. Having the organic material there is so much easier for the plants to build from than having to mine it.
So I like the Rodale Institute. They did a study, and they said, don't listen to any of these people are saying that you're starved. Ideally, everybody can have their own garden in their backyard, provide all the food they need. And there's these poor people in Africa, which they were giving millions and millions of pounds of GMO corn. Here, grow all this corn, is free. And they had thousands and thousands of acres of corn, right? The fields and fields of corn. It was the first time Africa had corn growing, to the point where coffee.
Even got a Starbucks cup, even. Come on.
Yeah, I know. No, it's just, uh-oh.
That $12 cup of coffee. Yeah, coming back.
Yeah. I found a cup here when I moved here. I said, that's a nice cup. Now, maybe I should just cover it, because I don't. That's another story, because I'm not going to say anything anyway. Let's see, what was I talking about? You need to quit disrupting me like this.
Sorry, Andy, you're the one that said, "Oh, coffee." You had to have a shot of coffee, but you're talking really about the farmer creating something that's almost the utopia, which we can do with just some basic understandings of how to keep putting the organic material back in, to keep the biology at a peak health.
Yeah. I can't wait to. I'm having the second half of my lifetime, and I've been dreaming of waking up in the morning. All right, Gertrude, I'll be out there in a moment. And, when I was a kid, I would get up and go milk the goat or milk the cow, and come back. Didn't you milk the cow? Yeah, but I drank it all. Sorry. I would love to have my own farm, because if you do, it's the same thing with people's properties, because there's a relationship to how you can make your property self-sustainable. You can make it healthier. The trees get healthier, the property, the lawn gets healthier, everything gets healthier, and they're healthier, rather than you breaking up all these natural cycles. A lot of the cycles are not happening on your property just because Mother Nature does it. If the systems, like remember we talked about, if the conditions are not in place, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, well, a seed won't germinate if the conditions aren't right for that seed to germinate. So, and it's the same with everything in our world. It's, has to have the conditions met before X can happen. And for us to be healthy on this planet, we have to come to this realization that it literally is all about the biology, and that these cycles are part of that. And the biology is the one that controls a lot of these cycles.
So one of the things about the nitrogen cycle, and I had mentioned this before, in my opinion, the pH level is very important for the soil biology. The most of the biology that are beneficial are they like to be in a acid pH rather than alkaline pH. If the pH is way too alkaline, you're going to be deficient in the proper type of bacteria, so forth, that live in that range. And over here is very interesting because it talks about the nitrogen availability in pH, and it's the same thing. That since nitrogen is very important, the pH. So it's pH availability ties into nitrogen, but also ties into the living soil, which again is all intertwined together. It's not like this is separate, because the pH that the biology lives in happens to be the perfect pH that nitrogen is available.
Well, and that's also dependent on how deep you're looking into the soil. Like on Monday's show with Craig Tester and Leva Olson jumped on as well. We were talking about a Winnow Grotsky column, and it was showing the different biology and types of biology that exist in this much oxygen going down to zero oxygen. It's a combination. And I talk a bit about the predator-prey model, where you have to have the prey species for the next, evolutionary step to, be successful. If you don't have the prey, you can't have the predator. And so you can't have the next level of biology or the next level. And it's, all in our soils, from oxygenated to non-oxygenated. And then in the middle, there's those guys, they're the middlemen, because they can go into the oxygenated and into the higher pHs and into the lower pHs without doing damage. It's an amazing system that Mother Nature put together, or God, or whoever you want to call it, but it's an absolutely phenomenal system.
It gave it the flexibility, because that's one of the things about nature. She's very flexible. She gives you enough room so that if you're strict in one way, if she made it strict in that way, nobody will make it through that maze. So it has to be very flexible to allow the biology to survive, because the earth itself is fluctuating all the time, from a dry period to a cold period to a really hot period. And you have to be flexible to survive in all those things. And that's one of the problems we're having now, is because the flexibility comes from time. And if the environment changes too rapidly, the biology can't change fast enough to meet it. That's my opinion in terms of how the biology is going to be dealing with these rapid changes that we go through.
Actually, I think you'd have to talk to Dr. James White, because the biology, when he's looked at it, we talked about horizontal gene transfer, how the biology is educating itself back and forth between the biologies. This is happening at such a tremendous speed and rate that we can't even barely comprehend it. So now they're not even looking at that so much as what groups of biology or families of biology do. So it's not the biology so much that can't adapt. It's more us crazy humans going that we can't adapt, because you look at a desert, Andy, okay, one day it's, hard packed, nothing there, then it rains, and the next day it's lush and green and blooming. The biology just sits in stasis, waits for the right environment to happen, then it goes whoosh back to life.
Well, I think that took millions of years to develop. All these different biologies need the time to rebuild their structures, rebuild their society. That's my opinion. See, they need that
in the
time.
Dead soils, yes.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter what type of soil, what environment. Like here in California or in Montana, the soil may be different, but it has to adapt to the different changes that normally the changes are slow, and the biology gets to adapt and change. That's what we humans do. We slowly evolve, and as things change. I was just saying that this current change is faster than normal. And so when you have a high degree of change in temperature rising, which normally takes hundreds of years, and now it takes decades, is like a little bit too fast, in my opinion, for vegetables to change, or corn to change, or any of these things that normally need to evolve in order to survive, whether they have to be go up higher the mountain. The trees are climbing, going up and higher in the mountain. Those that can't evolve are dying. The rest of them are evolving higher and higher in the. But if it only took 10 years, they would all die because they can't really evolve that fast. That's my
Can't
opinion.
adapt that fast, is what
Right.
you're saying. Now,
Right.
the thing with that is, if you take a corn plant that has been growing, say, in New Mexico for the last 20 years, that plant has adapted. As long as the seeds are put back in there, you're going into what's called the terroir of that specific
Yeah.
area. But yet I could take that corn plant that is used to heat and dry, and I can take it to the Mediterranean. And as long as I can
And
get
it'll
it to
grow.
grow once and
Right.
pick those seeds, put them back in, it takes 3 to 4 years for the cycle, for the biology to switch over to the new terroir.
Right. But so again, in my humble opinion, so what happens is, yeah, you can take that seed, which I have done before. I would buy stuff from different parts of the world and bring it over here and plant it and
Yep.
grow it. But I've learned that the more I grew it here, the better the seed would change,
Yeah.
and do better. But again, if they really need more time to really go through the whole change thing, to
And
really
more
be,
biology.
yeah, to be more on board with what's going on here, because the biology has to literally mutate to meet the demands. So I still feel that it takes time. I'll often tell people, see, that's what genetically modified organisms should be. That's what corporations should do. They should immediately, if it was the government was running, it's okay. We're going to develop corn that can handle the stress, that can handle this different climate change, and develop it now and make it available now. So you don't have to wait 10, 20 years, right? Which is the minimum for this corn to evolve and translate into that. If it survives, right? You grow it in the desert, a bunch survive, and that's what you grow, and you do it again next year.
Yeah.
And it takes a few years down the road to really establish doing that. And so that's what genetically modified organisms should be. We should be able to change them immediately so they can start growing as if they were doing that forever. Right? So did we miss anything with the comments?
Well, actually, Serena was talking about she was having trouble with some seeds, some tomato plants. But she got a good suggestion of pull the tomato plant out, peel the roots back and replant it, let it regrow in fresh soil, because there could be a problem there. She's talking about seeds not being viable, only getting one to germinate.
So these are new seeds she's gotten. So I would say, where did you get the seeds from? For the off the bat, whether they're
Baker seeds, I think. Baker Creek.
Baker Creek is supposed to be a reputable source, but I couldn't. My kernel of them are hard to germinate. Right. So sometimes melons, you have to learn how to. I don't know how the name, what the name was called, but what you do is take a little knife and you nick it. Nick it.
Okay, the plant, you're saying? Nick the plant?
The seed, because it's a real hard seed.
Okay, so what they do with like cannabis seeds, where they actually crack them before they plant them. So
right. So it's very similar. So what you do is you get a little sharp knife and you just cut a tiny little piece, and then you have to keep it. You have to make the environment really, really nice for them. So what I would do is I would get an LED light, or basically a different kind of light, because LED doesn't produce enough heat. So you want a bulb to shine nice and warm. The temperature needs to be above 70 degrees, and the liquid is very important too. So if you're trying to sprout the disease with city water, forget it. So you have to use filtered water to start with, and then you want to put something in the water so like for example, my worm juice would go nuts in there, and the seeds would go nuts with it. There's also bamboo vinegar. That's what it's used for. One of the things you use for a little drop in the water, because it's highly biologically active. Even a drop of fish emulsion without the urea in it has biology. Any of the compost tea will work really good. You want to put biology in the water and encourage that little, and what it'll do, it'll sprout. And then from there, you put it in the right container with the right soil. You don't want anything too rich. You want something that's slightly acid pH, that kind of stuff. And then it'll grow. Yeah, that's it. That's
Yeah.
exactly. Then it will grow. But if you don't do that, it doesn't break through that hard shell. And you don't want to crack it with a hammer or none of that stuff because you'll kill it. A little scratch will do it. You do that with any hard seed, any hard, like marijuana seed. That normally it's so small, you have to be able to grab the little thing. So they what they do is I give up and crack it, right? It's an easy thing
Yeah,
to
yeah.
do. But you definitely could just scratch it and you get the same result. So I
Well,
hope that
because
helps you.
a lot of seeds are eaten by birds and go through their system, and they get a whole bunch of new biology, and they'll get cracked by the
And
bird's
they
feet,
get planted by
etc.
the bird, right? The bird
Yeah,
plants, right? Exactly,
yeah,
and they do. They're some of the best seeds that come up that way. I've seen some birds poo-poo, and then all of a sudden the tomato plants are coming up. And go, oh, a cow or the watermelon. Those are volunteers, and that so it's a tribute to the biology. So I was
yeah,
talking about the nitrogen. The cycle, the nitrogen cycle, it's also very important for a lot of things. Of course, you understand the plants key into that. Human beings key into that too, in terms of how the water we use, and then we have the phosphorus cycle. There's a few more cycle, and then I'm not gonna there's like 17 of them, so I'm going to cover a little bit. And each one of these cycles so far has a lot to do with how the biology interacts with it.
yeah.
Like the
So,
nitrogen
Andy,
cycle.
I hate to stop your train of thought, but Serena did have another question that she would like
Okay.
to ask. I'm growing 2 micro tomato plants, Pinocchio orange and Birdie Jane. The Pinocchio orange, I should say, only produced 1 tomato, and the flowers turned brown, but the other is loaded with tomatoes. Ideas?
Um, it sounds like a type of disease that's specific to that type of tomato. So it's usually, I would say, well, it's in the soil, right? It's in a container in the soil, right?
I believe she's got them in bags or pots.
Right. So I would assume that you have the same soil. So it's a genetic thing of that particular type of tomato that she has. Because
Or
we had
do you
this.
think it could be overwatering, Andy, and making a hydro or not hydrophobic,
Well, she would be
anaerobic
she
zone?
would be watering the same to both of them, unless for some reason she was watering differently, so they both would get the same
Yeah,
treatment. Again, it goes back down to the specific genetics cannot handle that. You have to be a little bit more careful with
yeah.
them in that area. Probably she doesn't mention the temperature. Maybe doesn't like the temperature, or maybe there's lots of different things. She doesn't mention the type of fertilizer it is using. I'm assuming you're organic, huh, Serena? She's organic, right?
I'm assuming so as well. Yes.
Serena, are you organic? Are you listening in, girl? Girl, hello
Girlfriend.
there. Girlfriend, hello. Serena, say something. Right? I think she had to go somewhere. She went to pick some of
Anything's possible. So you were talking about the night. I think you're on the nitrogen cycle, or were we past that yet?
Well, the nitrogen cycle, we all know how important it is for plants. What did you say? On members marking potato. Well, it's not organic. Right, so it's not an organic mixture. So you really need to, and I think that the other plant might be a heirloom organic that's used to growing in organic soil and organic biology. That would make a big difference to it. Again, it's a genetic thing. Some things, if they're grown organically, you have to continue with that because they will not do well in the chemical environment because they need the biology. They happen to have the hairs in their root systems, right? Whereas the other ones don't. And the hairs are they're looking for this biology. If it's not there, then they're not going to do well at all. Whereas the chemically grown ones don't have the biology, and it doesn't make any difference what you do to them because you're going to be feeding this chemical that they're going to be getting, right? So they're still going to grow. So the best way to deal with this is to, well, that's a little bit human, but the best way to do it is increase the biology in the containers.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so Serena, what are you doing to increase the biology in the container? Are you making any compost? Are you using any compost tea? That's what I would do. I would if I had the worm farm. If I was near, I would come over and bring some worm juice and get that going. There are lots of ways to increase the biology. What you have to do. She's not answering. She's the silly's the one that's doing it. Serena is like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not. I'm innocent until proven guilty. There. And
Well,
that's
even a
what happened.
labs mix would help. There's a lot of biology and lactic acid bacteria in
Right.
making these labs.
Right. And so there's lots of ways to make biology, and you're not responding because that tells me, I got caught. I was a bad person because that's exactly what happens in the.
We're all learning. We're all learning.
You have to increase the biology right away. Get a hold of some really live compost. Make compost tea. I don't know what you okay. So you made some compost tea, right? There you go.
Yeah.
And fill
Good,
my
good,
plants
good.
compost tea. So again, I would humbly say, okay, you need to tell me more about your compost. People make compost, which is like, you're kidding me. That's compost, and it's like, if you don't have the biology in the compost, it doesn't mean automatically it's gonna produce biology. So I'm thinking, well, what did you make it out of? Did you use any animal manure whatsoever? If you probably didn't, there's no biology going in there other than the plants. And it's very important to get some type of animal manure. One of the reasons why I'm going through all these cycles is because biology is there. See what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, you're
Right?
a little crazy. Yeah. The biology's there. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. That is what I'm saying. Is that you need to, you can't ignore the biology, especially in container plants. They rely on you to bring some biology, and they can't survive in it. Either that, they're chemically fed, and they're too weak, and they, even if you brought biology to them, they wouldn't be able to deal with it. See, so if you already have, so you didn't tell me, so I'm going to assume the opposite. I've been doing this a long time. You went to a nursery, you bought this stuff, and it's not organically grown. They probably sprayed the heck out of it, and now you take them away from their drugs, and you're trying to make them grow happily, and they're not going to do it. Like you take a cocaine addict and you say, okay, now we're going to be having apple pie instead of cocaine. They're going to go, what? Or we're going to have some good tea, some compost tea. Go, what? See what I'm saying? And so, and that's what you have to do, Serena. You dig what I'm saying? You need to get, if you have compost, then you should tell me. You're not answering me because you're not making compost the way it should be. Okay. Otherwise, you would say, well, I'm using this, I'm using that, I'm using this. I don't see you say anything. Oh, yeah. So ideally, you have been using mushroom. That's fall dog. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Mushroom compost has some biology in it. But if you don't buy this the mixture you mentioned, it doesn't say anything about any biology in it.
Andy, a lot of mushroom compost, especially sold in retail, has been cooked first.
Yeah.
So it's killed all the biology.
Well,
you're just getting more organic material.
I think what happens is that, and this has been my experience. So I went to a place and they steamed it and everything. The biology was still there and came back when I gave the condition. The damn thing started bringing the biology back. So they didn't fry it enough. They didn't kill it enough or something like that. Because it started coming back right away. And so ideally you want to be able to deal with local sources where they come from. You see, so that's why I always gravitate to like Layton's. Layton's has a compost with the biology. You don't want to be reinventing the wheel. You got to find people around you that are making this incredible stuff. And go, excuse me, I want 10 pounds, please. Right, 20 pounds, please.
Yeah.
And that's basically what Layton sells this product for. You make a tea from it and you spray the biology.
Yeah.
Well,
because the extract is so much more dense with biology in an extract than taking just a pile of compost and spreading it out. You can take that pile of compost and make enough extract to do 100 or more acres instead of just having it do a little section.
Serena, I also want to say something too. See, I don't know if you've been watching our shows, but where Michael came on Michael Whitman talked about biochar. I bet you're not using any of that biochar. You really want to have the housing, the condominium for your biology live in. So if you go and spray biology and this stuff is totally useless, you're going to be a mass murderer, because all the people are going to come with their little children and everything. Hey, honey, let's move. Oh my God, we're going to live here. Then they're all going to starve. It's going to be like a place where everybody, Mister, you have any food? It's like awful. I'm not kidding. And so
Death Valley, you're sending them to Death Valley. Yeah,
so I would concentrate about bringing in. Okay, so she's having a problem with stink bugs. Again, it's really very simple. When the bug can eat the plant's food for the bug. They're not stupid.
It's not healthy. Yeah.
So you can spray all you want to. Yes, there are predators, stink bugs. It's not the stink bug's fault. It's going for the food because it's perfect for the food. It doesn't have it's food for them. You see, if it's not food, I mean, you say, I would not eat this, right? I am not going to eat that.
Okay. Then there's the joke that she says. Serena's great for jokes, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the skunk's favorite insect? The stink bug. Yeah.
So Serena, concentrate. It seems to me that, and I don't know anything what you do for a living or whatever, but you need to concentrate on getting a wide blend of biology and a wide blend of trace minerals. Put them together. That's what I do. I buy a source of trace minerals and various different sources of biology. Of course, you want to make your own biology. That's where my worm farm comes in. You can make it biology in so many different ways, but it's all about generating more and more biology, and that's the solution. And don't just do the biology without the minerals, because you want the biology and the minerals together.
Yeah, definitely.
See what I mean? And this is a solution for your plants or your stink bugs. Anything that's going on in your garden, snails, ants, all has to do with the biology, and it has to do with increasing the what's the word when you diversity or whatever you call it? There's so
biodiversity.
So many different varieties of this one of the biology. There, so many different varieties or living beings. There's like a you know what I mean? It's like that's very important, and that's the key right there. Oh, now my phone is doing something. Oh, so anyway,
it says charge me, Andy.
I thought I turned it off. I actually didn't. But that's what she should do with her problem. And these are just indicators of what's going on. I bet you we can have a little talk, and we're going to find. Yeah, well, for stink bugs, there are two things you got to do. First, it's going to take a little while to change your soil. Therefore, it's going to take a little while to get the plants healthy. In the interim, you have to help them to survive. So you want to get some cold brewed coffee, organic cold brewed coffee. The caffeine in there won't hurt the biology, and actually it'll help it a little, bring the pH down, because I bet your pH is really a little bit too high. That's what happens when your pH is out of whack. That means all the other cycles are not happening. They're dependent on the pH, because the biology is in that pH. That's the whole thing, right? That's why Mother Nature said everybody's going to live in these condos, and we'll make sure that we make it so they can do that. Duh. So, and then in the interim, you want to be able to you do foliar feeding, because they get the food in right away through their leaves and through the skin. And there are lots of different plants that you can make a sense from. Exactly right, Silly. Any of the herbs are good. You can just make a tea from it and spray. You can use lavender, citronella grass is wonderful. There are different kinds of mints. And so you grow that, because when you grow that, then you can spray that.
Yeah,
I've learned. That's why I do recommend coffee, because it's one of the easiest things to do, to use. Grow some coffee plants, make your own coffee, and spray that. That's what I do.
I wish I could grow my own coffee plants. I live in Canada. Okay, that ain't happening, bro.
Garlic is the same thing. You can grow some garlic and learn how to make a tea from that and spray the garlic.
I got garlic.
So these will help you during the meantime, trying to get citronella is also very good too. It helps to deter the bugs, because they can't sense it. They can't see the plant. That's why the smell does. But normally when you don't have these other things that block it, they will tell. They can sense it, but they can see it, and they can definitely smell it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So and they will go. That's the food I want to eat. and it'll solve your problem in the long run. It's the biology. You want to get the bio. Everything's so happy. Roots in the ground, more roots in the ground, and
Yeah.
you probably have those plants all by themselves going, oh God, oh God. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to consider one plant actually helps feed the next plant beside it. What it doesn't need, it passes around. They're very, it's a community. We always talk about
Exactly right.
caring community.
So you're missing the obvious thing is that you really have to have it all, everybody working together. There's going to be some damage because that normally happens, but if you do it right, it gets better and better and better. You get better at it and better at it all the time. There are a few things you can do, but you got to concentrate on the. When you do the biology, you also, that's why it's good to know the cycles. We go, well, gee, how am I disrupting this? What am I doing wrong? Because that's what happens. You disrupt the natural cycles that will give you all these minerals, that will give you the biology. And without the cycles, the biology is not there. Without the biology, the cycles is not there. So it goes down to you have to really understand what you're doing. Otherwise, you can't just run through the Chinatown like the bull, and destroy everything. That's what's happening.
And that's what we've been doing for a long, long time, Andy.
Companion planting. You have to learn a lot. Some things work really well together. Some things don't. It's years of experience to say, hey, if I plant that with this, hey, wait. But usually the way it works, and even if you plant different herbs that have a smell, you may not want to plant some plants with other plants because they will definitely have that particular smell.
Well, so garlic.
Like garlic. So you have to love garlic and everything that's growing there. So if you plant garlic with a tomato, poof, you'll smell the garlic. It tastes great, but the bug will go, I have no idea what that is.
Well, see, she says she's got basil and carrots in the beds with her tomatoes.
Right, basil plants are ideal, and carrots will attract bugs. So another companion plant with tomatoes is potatoes. So I used to grow tomatoes. So you get a potato, cut a little hole, put the tomato in the center, and plant it. It grows up together that way, and the bugs will go. Especially if it's in the ground, go to the potato and never get to the tomato.
Okay, and that's she said that's what she has in the one that got the stink bugs. They're all over her basil plants.
Right. So the stink bugs are going after the basil plants. So again, you have to understand that you have a soil problem. You concentrate on the health of the soil because normally they wouldn't touch the basil plant, but the basil plant is so weak that the bugs are eating it. Then you have a problem. You have a soil problem, and you need to start concentrating more on applying. Be more biodynamic, regenerative in your how you're doing stuff. You need to look at. I bet you're not using any form of rock dust, which is your back girl. Let me see. Put your hand. Pat. Okay, so you want to get that. That's why I like Michael's product because it has earthworms, biochar. It has rock dust in it, see, right? And different type of mycorrhizal stuff. And that's what you want, a blend. Your nature, you don't find any one thing. You want to get this, make your own little blend and start putting it into the ground, And you'll find it's going to take you a few seasons, but then you won't have the roly. So I'm writing a column now on roly-polies. Again, the same thing. All these things are related to one thing, and that's the health of the soil. When the soil is like a forest, you don't have a problem. But if it's just a bunch of single trees, you're going to have a problem.
You spray it as a foliar, Serena.
Yeah. And it's organic, Serena. You want to do organic cold brewed coffee. Yes. Oh, my gosh.
Anyway, Andy, we're at our hour mark.
Yeah, we got to go.
We got through some of the things,
Yeah, spray it as a foliar feed. Spray it on the plants. You want to spray it on the bugs. The caffeine will keep them away. The plants will love the caffeine. Again, it has to do, we have root problems. It means the roots are not getting the biology down there. And so they're not going to get the minerals that they need, see? So you can actually foliar feed them, like when you do the coffee, it's organic coffee, they'll have iron in it. What's really good is coffee, cream, and sugar. So you have the cream, it's the organic milk. So the formula would be you brew a cup of coffee, don't do like people do. They do one for themselves and they do another one because then all the caffeine, you got the caffeine. So you get organic coffee, and you can make cold brew coffee, and then you take some of that. You add in a gallon of the cold brew coffee. You want to add like a cup of organic whole milk, it does whole fat, the whole thing, and then you want to add a tablespoon of Granny Smith molasses. Stir it all up and further feed your plants. They will get a good blend of trace minerals because all of those, and calcium is very important to relieve the stress of the plant. Calcium, see, is not the nitrogen. All these other things will make the nitrogen and the phosphorus and all those things more available. And then if you really, really good, you can also start spraying with compost tea because your compost should be, we talked about it before, it should be a healing agent.
Yeah. Yeah.
It should be encouraging new biology, and it should be rich in the trace minerals.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the ideal things that I do whenever I get the chance to go out for animal manure, or they give it to me, is I bring some rock dust with me, and immediately while they're dumping on the truck, I start sprinkling rock dust into it. And the rock dust and the biology will get together and hold the minerals, so none of the minerals will leach out. But if you don't do that, wherever you take it, it's going to be leaching all the minerals out after a few waterings. Yeah. And you won't have nearly the trace mineral you need. And remember, C90, SEA 90, it's an ancient seabed, so you can take a little bit of that and make a tea out of it and spray it. They're going to get their minerals. If they can get their minerals, you're right. If they can get their minerals, they will survive this. But you really have to deal with the cost, because all these bugs are coming from the soil. So you need to stop where they're coming from by increasing the biology of the soils. And normally the biology in the soil will control these pests and diseases and keep them at a level that they don't bother anybody. But when they get out of hand, the structure, the policing force that's in place is not there. The microbes also are like your guards, right? They're like they stop things from happening, right? So
well,
you don't have
to think about it, Andy. It's the same in our bodies. If we get a cold, our body sends out the biology or the white blood cells to go battle, and that's where if you're drinking like a soup or a broth, they're broken down. The material's broken down so far that the biology grabs that, makes a whole bunch more soldiers to go out and go fight against that cold.
And that's the way. So we have Mother Nature. What's it called when you mimic? We talked about it the other day, when you imitate nature.
You're mimicking nature.
No, we talked about the way we mimic nature, and when we build things, and it's a name for it. That you basically, like the way the biology works, and we learn from that. But it's a name for it. We did a whole show on it, but it's too late.
Biomimicry.
Yeah, something like that. Exactly.
Biomimicry.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So we just have to do that for the garden. This is how Mother Nature treats the soil, and that's exactly what we have to do. And you won't have any of these problems. You won't have it. They'll just go away. So anytime somebody says, I'm having this problem with this bug, there's silence, right? Because I would say you're having a soil problem.
You're having a biology problem.
You're having a biology problem, exactly. Not the soil. There's nothing wrong with the soil. It's the biology that needs to be in the soil.
Yeah, it's a lack of biology in your soil. Anyway, Andy, we're over the hour, brother.
I know. Sorry, guys. I'll send you the money for refund your time. Sorry. Take care, guys.
Are you doing any more talks? You had mentioned you had just done a talk. Are you doing anything more? I know you're writing the articles.
Well, in September, I might be at the farmers market I might be at the Ventura County Fairgrounds. They're having a heirloom seeds day. Cool. Everybody's going to be talking about heirloom seeds, and so I'll probably be there giving a talk. But the thing to do is to go to our channel, whether it be here or my website. Is directions to the channel, and we're talking there all the time. So tons of stuff going on up there, man. So thank you guys for hanging out. Have a great evening. You too. Take care. Operation Annihilation. He must be like really badass, man. Okay. See you guys later.
For the channel, guys, we've got Simply Jane Homesteading on with me on Friday. It's already posted, so you guys can set your notifications. I'm trying to get more into the homesteading area. And then on Sunday, I'm being interviewed by Dr. Paula. That should be an amazing interview. We'll get that posted as soon as she sends me the details or more details on it. But so Friday, we've got Simply Jane Homesteading. And then on Sunday, I'm being interviewed by Dr. Paula. Monday, we're still working on a guest. Leighton's trying to stay in the same strain of idea, but we'll see if he can actually get the young lady that he wants to have come on. Anyway, guys, have a great weekend. Stay safe. Love you all, and we'll see you on the next show.
Bye.